Hello, my name is Bibi and I'm a certified yoga teacher, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the Iyengar Yoga Association in Vancouver. I hope you will feel inspired to start or continue yoga practice by meeting and learning from our teachers and dedicated practitioners. And we are, as you know, probably we already started a series of interviews, and we are actually inviting you for a dialogue. So please write down your questions in the section below and we will be happy to answer them next time we meet here. And today I have invited Siobhan Sloan-Seale. Siobhan lives and works on the unceded, traditional, and ancestral territories of the Coast Salish peoples. She has been a student of Iyengar Yoga for 20 years, and she's been teaching Iyengar Yoga since 2010. She's also a performing artist of 31 years who works in dance, music, and theater. Siobhan identifies as a mixed-race Black intersectional feminist and anti-racist, and endeavors to create equity and build community within the communities she is a part of. Hello, Siobhan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Thank you for being on this call.
Yeah, this is
So,
great.
could you please tell us about you? Um, how did your yoga journey start? Do you
Sure.
remember the very first class of you were introduced to yoga, and maybe how you decided to become a yoga teacher?
Uh, well, it's fairly long and drawn out, but I'll make it condensed. My yoga journey started in Winnipeg, where I grew up. That's where I'm from. And my very first Iyengar teacher was Lori Ankenman, and I believe she's still a teacher in our community. And um, I at the time I was training as a dancer, and I took maybe one or two sessions with Lori, and then I moved out to Vancouver to go to complete my university degree in dance, and I kind of forgot about Iyengar for a while, and I tried different types of yoga, all different kinds of yoga, um, and after I graduated it was 2005. I had some injuries, and so I quit. Actually, I quit dance. I quit yoga, um, and I thought I would have to quit permanently, and so I started mainly doing Pilates actually and physiotherapy. Um, and it was my back was kind of the main issue at the time. And then I did that for 2 years, and I wanted to get back into yoga, but I tried some different classes, and I just found that I kept injuring myself. And a friend of mine recommended Louis Etling, and who's one of my mentors and teacher trainers, who became my teacher trainer eventually. And so I started to go to Louis' class, and I was familiar with Iyengar because I had tried it in Winnipeg. And and that was the beginning really of regular training and attending class. And I studied with Louis for a couple of years, and I just remember one day in class, we were sitting for meditation at the beginning of class, and I just remember having this feeling in my body of ease, and I just felt at home. And I just wanted to find a way to have more of that feeling. And so I approached Louis about uh, teaching and teacher training, and yeah, and so I started that process in 2010.
Mhm.
Yeah,
What what do you say when you're feeling at home? What do you mean by that? Like many people put different connotations.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that's a good question. I think for me, like, the actual feeling in my body is a feeling of calm and a feeling of peace, and um, a feeling of, everything is going to be okay.
Mhm.
And, like happiness, I guess, contentment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what drew me to join the teacher training program. Yeah. And I mean, I had initially come to the practice because of injury.
Mm-hmm.
And and so my reasons for coming to the practice were different than, as I practiced and as I learned more, what I what I discovered or what was revealed to me through the practice was
Mm-hmm.
this really deep sense of belonging, and not belonging to like a community, like a specific community, but just as a sense of belonging to myself that I'd never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how did you, so it looks like yoga did help you with your back issues, with your injuries, so you could come back into your dance and performance career?
It did. I mean, it's an evolving process constantly, I think, especially when I started out practicing Iyengar. Um, it did help, but after I did teacher training, my initial teacher training, I had injuries at the end of that process as well. And so I had to kind of take a step back and look at how I was practicing,
Mm-hmm.
because, there was something that was not working. Even though I was doing Iyengar, and Iyengar is so known for its um, attention to detail and alignment and, its therapeutic aspects, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was still something a way I was practicing that was hurting myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's been a much longer process of, really learning the underlying philosophy of the practice, which, as you know, one of the underlying principles is to practice ahimsa, right? Nonviolence, non-harming. And that was a much more difficult thing for me to understand about. Like, I had to change that in my practice. I really had to be honest with myself about how I was practicing, how I was pushing my body in a way that wasn't actually good for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love to dance, but I'm not, I just only can imagine what the day would be, what your day would be like, as someone who is a professional in the music and performance. But what I see, like lots of athletes, they already tend, like your body is flexible, right? And you tend to hard, like if you don't use your body, you don't work hard with your body, then you're doing something wrong, right? And I also understand, like I see that with our young students, like I don't know what I mean young is like middle age, we want to also sometimes approach yoga and any other physical activity, the hatha yoga as a physical challenge, like if I don't challenge myself, if I don't go out of the comfort zone, then I didn't mean like then I don't grow, I don't progress. But then with the time I realized that actually yoga teaches you something else, right? So like awareness, deeper awareness of your body, really like building this dialogue between you and your body.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it teaches you a certain kind of discernment, like, because some people do need to push, you know.
Mm.
Sometimes in my practice, I do actually need to push myself because I tend to be more laid back and grounded and, tamasic, right? Like what we would say in yoga is like tamasic. Um, but I think that that's what you learn through the practice, is to discern when those moments arise. Well, when do I need to push myself, and when do I actually need to practice restraint and be more gentle with myself? Um, and so it teaches us to look, to study, self-study, right? Svadhyaya,
Mhm.
and and make those decisions and respond to our current situation with the appropriate kind of practice.
Mhm. I totally resonate with you. What I hear from you, being myself a nomad. For me to like when I heard the word when you said, I felt like I'm at home.
Mhm.
And there's a big question like, where is my home, right? I travel the world and I do tell to myself, whenever I open a mat, doesn't matter where in which part of the world I am, whenever I open yoga mat and I find a home in this, like home for most of us is the place, as you said, of peace, happiness, and stability, security. And I think this is what we are. It looks like we are a little bit like the whole population on this planet, we kind of were thrown away from this sense of stability and peace, while in certain parts of the world there was just a normal state of being. But in what I see amongst my friends who are mostly Canadians, they were not exposed to any war for many generations. Then
Yeah.
for them, it's like something, like what we know from statistics in the North America, like the anxiety, stress, depression, number of suicides increased dramatically, and how yoga is not only helps you to deal with the physical injuries, which is a great benefit, right, but also with your mental and emotional health, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I am someone who struggles with depression and anxiety. And when I'm able to practice regularly, it really does help with those things.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Was there,
Let's
you had
go.
more?
Yeah, let's go with questions like from, because for me, like when I say when you said send me these numbers, like we know each other for a long time, but when you send me that you practiced for 20 years, like do you remember yourself when you just started your practice yoga? Like how did this really affect on you, your self identity, on your daily, just like the way how you are, the way how you were and the way how you are, did it really impact you? And how, if it did, how did it change you and your life?
The biggest change, because my practice was kind of sporadic, I would say, in the first 10 years. And I think I became more a serious student when I started teacher training. And that process of being trained as a teacher was life changing for me, for sure. I had never I'd never seen myself as a leader of anything. You know, I'd never I had taught a little bit. I taught some dance, so teaching wasn't brand new to me. But I didn't think I would teach when I started training with Louis. I really just wanted to know more. I wanted to deepen my knowledge. And and Louis, I remember telling her that, and she said you'll teach. And she knew something obviously that I didn't at the time, but um and so what I experienced through that process of learning, um which was very difficult, like becoming a teacher, like teaching your first classes, like it just it's so awkward. And there's a lot of complicated feelings that you get confronted with. You're supposed to be leading a class, you're supposed to know something, but you're a beginner yourself. And um but I think that whole training process really allowed me to feel confident in just talking to people, because as a teacher, your job is to welcome people into the yoga space, and you're responsible for the experience that they have there. And so it was, I mean, yeah, I really learned to relate to people and to care for people. and just to be in relationship with all different kinds of people, which I just never really experienced before. So it's definitely life-changing. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, and you make me think about, so like for so many years you could see so many different people, right, with very different backgrounds and personalities. Did you find anything in common in them? Like some people go, some people stay. What is the first thing that brings them? What motivates them to start? They just show up in the studio and start practicing with you, and some become dedicated and really it sticks to them and it becomes their part of their daily routine, not
Yeah.
necessarily teaching, but practicing.
So I mean, is your question like, why do people come to class? Or,
Yeah, we can start from there.
I mean, I think that people come to yoga class, for so many different reasons. Some reasons are more material, like they want to lose weight, or they want to be fit.
Mhm.
They want more flexibility or more strength, you know. Some reasons are spiritual reasons. Some people are spiritual seekers. Um, some people were like me, who were injured and were just wanting to be out and to not be in pain. You want to feel well and feel healthy. Um, so I think the reasons for people coming are varied. And I think that those reasons, if people stick with the practice, because Iyengar yoga isn't for everyone. Um, but if people do resonate, they connect with the practice and they stick with it, your initial reasons for coming, as we talked about earlier, may actually change, right?
Mhm.
As you practice, the practice reveals things to you individually, to each person. And I know some of my longtime students, it would be interesting to ask them. I've never asked them why they continue, but some of my students have said that they really get something out of it. And it's usually like they just feel better. Their back feels better, or their spirit feels better, or, like there's something that's in it for them that keeps them coming back. And often it is a connection with a teacher as well as with the practice itself, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, yeah. I also started remembering myself, but first I came to Iyengar yoga class with also like injuries, and what you mentioned about um, when I did a little bit of research, I found, what is the most searchable in Google, the keyword for Iyengar? Weight loss. So usually people start talking, like from top problems. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to to lose weight. I need to start moving my body. Like, what are the options there? They starting workout, running, but then they hear that, oh, they need to also stretch their body. And what are the options? Pilates, yoga, right? So like first people take it maybe superficially. They're not really interested. This is, I'm talking about mainstream, right? And they're not really looking into some kind of spiritual. But then for some reason, if they're really being present and really like listening to what teacher, because we are, as you know, like we are Iyengar yoga teachers, we talk a lot, like, but this is actually the way how disengage your mind from wandering and being here in the present moment, right? So like your mind is busy thinking out, how can I move my skin? Like my move doesn't move, like my skin doesn't move, how can I move it? Right? You listen to Mr. Iyengar's instructions. Yeah, so but then we kind of feel differently after the yoga session class, and we want to have these feelings again, right? So like the way how it makes you feel, experience, that is what you're looking for, and again, and then you, with the time, with the days, weeks and months, you kind of experience that in the very stressful situations you are less reactive, you are kind of, you can take a breath, look at the situation, and you don't jump into um, like emotional first reaction. So
Mhm.
yeah, well, I find lots of benefits that I'm talking with all my friends around. But it's interesting, like, as you said, well, you said something interesting. Iyengar yoga is not for everyone. What did you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I don't think, because people come to my class and, sometimes people are looking for something else. They want to move more, or like, I find that Iyengar, I came to it later because I took it initially when I was quite young, and then I came to it a few years later, and I connected with the practice more when I was a little bit older.
Mhm.
And that was in part because I was injured, and so I needed to move more slowly. I needed the time to really like feel my body and think, and you know in order to like correct whatever I was doing. um and I some people just don't connect with that type of practice, that
Mhm.
kind of slower, more methodical practice. And it's not all slow. Not all Iyengar teachers teach slowly, but it is more common to find that in
Mhm.
our community, right? A slower pace, and
Yeah.
yeah, workshop style classes. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, that's all.
Let me ask you the very final question. What would be the one piece of advice if you would give it to our audience?
Okay. So it's funny, this question, because I actually, I try to avoid giving people advice.
Okay.
But I want to say more.
Mm.
Um, I think because personally, I really don't like when people give me unsolicited advice,
Mhm.
but you're soliciting my advice. So, um, I guess what I was thinking about, uh, if I was to give a piece of advice, it would be to keep searching for ways of living and being in the world that honor people's dignity.
Mhm.
Yeah. So whatever that is for you, whether that's practicing yoga or meditating, or like whatever that those ways of being and ways of living are, but to keep searching for more ways to honor people's dignity.
Mhm.
And I say that because of, there's been a lot that's happened in this last year with the pandemic, and the pandemic has really exposed a lot of vulnerabilities about our society. And it's shown us who the more vulnerable people are in our society. And I think it's shown us that we need to change things to make sure that the people who are on the edges, on the margins, are taken care of and do have the resources to take care of themselves. Um, because I think it would be, I think it's important, as we're having this conversation about how to be well, essentially, right?
Mhm.
Talking about practicing yoga is a wellness conversation. We also have to think about who has access to that wellness, because not everybody does, and not everybody has the luxury. Like, I remember you sent me some of the interview questions, and I, been thinking about them. And um, one thing that came up for me was, how can we stay, I think one of them was, how can we stay calm in the middle of crisis? And from where I am in my specific situation as a middle class person who has a certain amount of financial resources and family support and all of these things, I have a reasonable expectation that this crisis will end, right? Like I'm, it's hard. It's not like it hasn't been hard for me, but I can reasonably expect that the crisis will end. And a lot of people aren't in that situation. A lot of people were in crisis before the pandemic. They've continued to be in crisis throughout the pandemic and may continue to be in crisis afterwards. So, I think I lost my track there, but I just want to situate the conversation like in a bigger context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are actually hoping to create this space for this conversation here and hope to come back and the community will come back with the questions and comments. And on the last note, I would like to offer our audience to join Siobhan's class. So as part of her work, and in addition to other general classes, she offers to all members of the public. Siobhan started a BIPOC yoga class. So for more information on that, you can visit her website, vancouver.iyengaryoga.com, and we will put in the description the link to the website where you can click and easily go there and find all information about this yoga class. Because as a racial minority member in the Iyengar community and as the only Black Iyengar yoga teacher in the province of BC, Siobhan believes that BIPOC yoga spaces are one way to begin to address systemic racism within the yoga community. Is there anything that you would like to add in the end, Siobhan, before we end this conversation?
I don't. I think that's everything. Maybe just I'll say a little something about the BIPOC class. It was really, I just want to acknowledge Stephanie Tenser, who is one of our Iyengar teaching members and runs a Studio Po out of Toronto. And she had initially, we kind of got in touch about anti-racism work in the Iyengar community. And so she helped me start a BIPOC class last fall. And now I've since kind of taken that on myself onto my own platform, but I just wanted to mention her and give credit where credit is due. There are people in our community who are working towards equity, and I hope that work continues. And then for the BIPOC class, it's really about cultivating a space for people of color to come together, and you not have to be the only person of color in the room, or if you are a person of color who's dealing with a lot of racialized trauma or racism, racial abuse, BIPOC spaces are important for that reason as well, just to create safe space. Because our yoga spaces in Canada are predominantly, white yoga spaces. And so this class is one way to kind of begin to address those inequalities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Siobhan, for finding time to have a conversation with me. Yeah. And in the end, I would like to remind for our audience, for our listeners who were with us till the end, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's start this dialogue and write your questions in the comments below. We will definitely come back to answer these questions. And thank you for listening. Thank you, Siobhan.
Thank you so much, BB. Namaste.
Bye-bye.